Welcome to the Growth and Influence podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Schultz, and today we're talking about the difference between demand generation and demand capture. This is important because this distinction is one of the core reasons why marketing has lost its way today, as one prominent CMO told me in a recent conversation. And it has everything to do with the transition from the last era of SaaS marketing to this new era where the economic reality is making things a lot harder for CMOs and the entire marketing organization. So I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Growth and Influence podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Schultz. I'm a B2B SaaS direct response marketer, and I'm also passionate about personal development and coaching. I started this podcast for a few reasons. Number one, I believe B2B SaaS marketing has suffered from absurd levels of inefficiency for years, leading to astronomical cost to acquire a customer. In yesterday's SaaS economy, people were okay with that. Today, it's a sure path to failure. This podcast is designed to help you understand how to market with more efficiency, earlier profit, and more tangible results that grow your company and put marketing back in the strategic seat it should have at the table. The second reason I started this podcast was out of a desire to help kids living in emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical poverty get a hand up from where they're at. While the next phase of this podcast will focus less on those personal development principles and more on the tactics and strategies of B2B SaaS marketing, I'm still very passionate about personal development and bringing its principles to these kids. You'll see that mission develop here as time goes on. Again, welcome. Let's jump into today's episode. I spoke to a CMO recently who said that SaaS and tech marketing in the B2B space had lost its way. This is a CMO who was highly decorated, recently chosen as one of the top 50 CMOs to watch, somebody who had successful exits, led marketing organizations at several significant organizations. And this person said that marketing lost its way because it was no longer strategic and it was being treated like a commodity tactical function rather than the strategic function that it should be. This leads to today there being CMOs on the bench in large numbers and sometimes reporting into sales even instead of being its own independent function. Now, this person felt like there were two reasons, one main reason and then one that I'm kind of teasing out of that as another cause for marketing losing its way and not becoming strategic anymore. The first one is marketing gave up the keys of knowing the customer to customer success. So while that used to be marketing's job to understand the customer better than anybody else at the company and to give that knowledge to the rest of the organization, customer success is now the keeper of those keys. The second thing that marketing did to become less strategic and lose its way was it did demand capture instead of demand generation. During the last era of SaaS marketing, the grow at all costs era that we are no longer in as of end of 22, beginning of 2023. So demand capture is just order taking. That's a commodity function. That is a subset of sales. And so that would make sense that falls under sales. These two things are really related. To do demand gen, you have to know the customer. Demand capture is easy. You just schedule the phone call. You just give them a path to convert from free to paid when they're ready. So that part is easy. But that wasn't really even going well during this last era. Most of the leads being delivered to sales were really bad. Conversion rates, if people would look at them, just weren't very good across that whole process. So if you know the customer really well, then you can do demand generation. But if all you're doing is demand capture, you don't really need to know the customer that well. So that includes meeting the prospective customer where they're at. If you're going to know them really well and do good demand generation, you need to know where this customer or this prospective customer is at today. Not assuming they're just a lead ready to be captured. There's an awareness scale here. Some people are very aware of your product category. They know about you, and you just have to book the call with your sales team and do your ongoing marketing around the account. But others may have a painful problem that they only vaguely understand, and certainly don't believe that anybody else understands. And they think it's a problem that only exists in their company. They think the pain it causes to them is unique or idiosyncratic. And so to try to book a meeting with that person, you're not going to get a response. You're just going to get nowhere. That's 97% of your market, give or take, maybe more or less, depending on the market. But generally, like 3% of your market is ready to have a discussion with your sales team or upgrade from free to paid, and the rest needs some work. And so as an order taking or demand capture organization, what you're doing is you're only working with that 3% of your market. And so it's no wonder that conversion rates were so low, that cost to acquire a customer was so high, that there was so much waste and inefficiency in the marketing funnel during that time. And so the goal today, the key today, is to move out of that non-strategic demand capture mode and move back into demand generation, where you can create more profit in your funnel, build more efficient marketing. And so this is how you do it. What I think happened a lot of time in the last era was that marketers would test someone with the closing pitch that they want them to take at the bottom of the funnel. So it's like, book a call, book a demo, upgrade now. That's the last thing you want them to do. And so marketers would test with that kind of pitch, with that kind of call to action. And if the person didn't take it, then that person was put out to pasture in a nurture program. And in the previous era of SaaS and tech, that nurture program didn't convert well. It didn't matter because the focus was on those that were converting and buying. Grow at all costs meant you could write off both the real cost and the opportunity cost of the people who fell out of the funnel, because there were people who were coming through and turning into customers. It was happening, even if it was very inefficient, very expensive, and an extremely low conversion rate. It was just the strategy there was just pour more gas onto that fire, pour more money into that thing that was doing that. It wasn't smart or efficient, but it was what everybody was doing. And the problem today is that when people are still running this old playbook and then looking for ways to optimize it to meet the different demands of today's environment, that's just not going to deliver the kind of results you're looking for. It won't work. The math was just too bad to start with, that, it's not going to, you can't improve it enough. You can't optimize it enough to get your results. So the solution isn't to get a little better at the different parts of the process. It's not to do better nurturing. It's not to convert a little bit better here, a little bit better there. The solution is to look at the 97% of your market that isn't ready to hop on a demo with your sales team or do a free to paid conversion in your product today. You need to market to those people much more effectively. And that's where the growth will happen. And if you can start converting those people, you become more efficient and more profitable, because your inefficiency before came from the fact that you're paying to put messages in front of all 100% of these people, and only 3% are ending up as customers. So that's 3% efficient marketing, 97% inefficient. And that's why your cost to acquire a customer is so high. That's where all the waste is happening. So how do you do this? Well, there are a couple of stages on this awareness scale. So far I've really only differentiated between the 3% who are highly aware of who you are, what you do, and are ready to take that next step if you can just give them a nudge. And then there are the 97% who aren't in that 3%, but there are more divisions in this category over here. And this isn't something that marketers have not understood before. I think everybody understands this. I'll talk about why I think it doesn't get translated into action in today's market. But the first end of this awareness scale is those who are unaware. This prospect has no awareness of the problem you can solve or the pain it's causing in his or her life. This person takes the longest to convert, and this is your hardest job as a marketer. There's a reason why marketers have been focused on the 3% who are looking for their product. That's the easiest group to convert. We're on the other end of the spectrum now, and it gets progressively harder as you move in this direction. So this is the hardest group to convert. And maybe you won't focus on this person, that's fine. Not every company is going to have to go out and go to the entire market. So, you may not have to go look at unaware people and try to market to them. You choose which stages of people you focus on here, And that will be determined by the size, shape, and temperature of your market in general. It's different for different markets. The one thing that is true for everyone, though, is that if you only focus on this 3%, you're not going to be successful ever again. That era is over unless you're, if you're Microsoft or Salesforce or you're, an established, you've already scaled up, you already have $1 billion in ARR, or at least, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars coming in, where you can absorb this kind of inefficient marketing and continue to just really pour money into a small part of your market who are ready to convert at any given time. It's not ever going to work again. So that era is over. That 3% is for those types of players. And if you're not one of those, then you need to do this differently. So when you speak to this unaware prospect, you appeal to two things, because the key is here, you need to start marketing to this person where they're at. And so if they're unaware, they don't know that you exist, they don't know about the problem that you solve, they don't recognize that they have that problem in their life, they don't know about the solutions, they're completely unaware. The two things that you can use to start a conversation with them are, number one, their identity. So tell them that you know who they are and that you're speaking to them. And especially if it's a cherished identity. Okay, so appeal to a cherished identity that they have, and then talk about a terrifying threat that they're not yet aware of. The key to operationalizing this awareness scale is to speak to them where they're at. So you want to enter the conversation that's already happening inside their heads. And so in that case, there is no real conversation in their heads, but they know who they are and they're afraid of things that they don't know of. So you talk to them about that, who they are, and a lurking threat that they're naively oblivious to right now. Okay, the next phase on the awareness scale, this is like they've moved from that unaware to this next phase, they're problem aware. And you may have moved them there yourself, and then you talk to them this way, or you may meet them there where this is where they already are. In the first time that you talk to them, they're already there. So this prospect is aware of the problem, and that's where you start your conversation with this prospect. There's some nuance here. There's a problem, and in B2B, that's going to be something that exists at the business level. Okay, but then there's this pain that the problem causes, and that exists at the personal level. That's where your leverage really lies, not in the problem that someone can forget about when they shut their laptop at the end of the day, but in the pain that remains with them and distracts them from everything else in their life. So show them that you understand that, and you'll have their attention and their trust. Here's the difference. When you only talk about the problem, it sounds like this. Your team hasn't hit quota for 7 quarters. That sounds painful. That sounds like a big problem. But when you add the pain that they're feeling on a personal level, it sounds like this. You look around and you see those people who are still hitting quota, and you wonder how they're doing it. What do they know that you don't know? You haven't hit quota for 7 quarters, and you know your job is at risk. Your VP took a chance in putting you in this role, and you promised you would come through, and so far you haven't. You're starting to wonder if you even belong in sales management or if your earlier success was just a fluke. Okay, there's a difference there, right? One is just talking about the business problem. The second one has a level of depth and understanding that really gets the prospect to open up to the person who's giving them that message because they feel understood. And when they feel understood, they start to trust the person who sounds like they understand them. So that's the problem aware, pain aware level of this awareness scale. The next phase is solution aware. This prospect understands the problem and they are aware of solutions, but they do not have any particular awareness of your product. You engage this person with a message about the solutions they're aware of and why you have a differentiated solution that will solve their problem and relieve their pain better than any of the others. If you have a unique mechanism for marketing or delivering your result, then you use that here in your messaging as that point of differentiation. So in this case, maybe if you're selling like a CRM solution, they know that there are problems that CRM solutions solve. They're aware of those problems. They're aware that they have some. They know that CRM solutions exist. So you start this conversation talking about the special thing that only you can do. And the more you can make it a unique mechanism, something that the other products don't have or are not talking about. It could be a unique marketing mechanism, or it can be a unique delivering mechanism that exists in your product. Either way, it's unique to you. Other people aren't talking about it. And then all of a sudden, you're not one commodity in a group of commodities. You're something special and different and with a high value and a real reason for your prospect to pay attention to you. Okay, there's a model in that unique mechanism that I'll talk more about in a different podcast. The model is there's a difference between an improvement offer, where it's like, well, the other CRMs do this, but we do it 10% better. Or even if we do it 50% better, 100% better, it's like, yeah, it's something that already exists, and people are going to see this as just an improvement over another product. The other way you can frame this unique mechanism, though, is the new opportunity. And the new opportunity is different than an improvement offer because it's something that the person has never tried before. So it solves their problem in a way that they've never been aware of, and it allows you to market to them in a way where you can be much more compelling. You can say, the reason that you've never solved this problem before is because you didn't have this. And when you have this, everything's going to change. So all the failure that you've had before trying to solve this problem, all of the times that that you thought you had the answers and they didn't work, it's not your fault, and it's not going to impact this next effort because you have this different thing. Okay, the next stage on this awareness scale is product aware. So before they're solution aware, they know there are solutions out there, but they had no particular knowledge of your product. This prospect in the product aware phase understands the problem and the pain that causes it, and they understand the solutions, and they are aware of your product. So this is when you make your bold claims, you dive deeper into that unique mechanism. This is where you really give them messaging that establishes you as the only person that can solve their problem in this way. Now, if they've come through this awareness stage progression with you, then they know that you understand their problem, and you've gained their trust by showing them that you understand them, and you're much more likely to be able to make a bold claim here and be believed because you've already earned that trust. And at any of these stages, you can pull in some elements from the previous stages. Maybe this person is aware of your product, but they're not motivated to move because they have numbed the pain. It happens all the time. That's just a human thing to do. And so they know there's a problem, they've numbed this pain, you come to them, they know about the solutions, they know about your product, but they're just a little bit jaded. You can reawaken their pain by iterating your understanding of that pain and what they stand to lose if they don't solve it, and how the pain will get worse if this problem isn't solved. So, and you can then reiterate your unique mechanism, and your messaging here is about why your product will give them the best outcome. And then finally, there's the most aware. This is the 3% that everybody's, this is like the demand capture phase that everybody was already doing already. This person simply needs a strong pull to take the step you want them to take, whether that's speaking to your sales team or upgrading from a free to a paid subscription. Give them a compelling reason to take that step. Offer them a guarantee if that's feasible in your business. Maybe you can guarantee that the sales call will give them certain value, or that they're going to gain something from the process of investigating the product further. You can add scarcity. So is there potentially something that you can give them of high value that's scarce so that you can't give it to everybody, but those who take action right at the point in time when you're offering this, they get this thing. So maybe there's a sales process you can give them that's highly valuable to them, but which you can't do for everyone because it takes resources from your side. Whatever it is, find a way to sweeten that deal and make it scarce, and tell them that you can do this for them, but they have to start now before your resources are tied up indefinitely. Tell the truth. Actually make it a real scarce thing so that they can create some urgency for them by giving them a deadline. This is one of the major things that I believe has been missing from B2B and SaaS, B2B SaaS and tech marketing for a number of years. And it's what needs to come back now and save today's SaaS companies from the wasteful, inefficient go-to-market approach that will prevent them from surviving in this new economic reality. So you have to put this, and when I say this, I'm not just talking about this last thing, I'm talking about this whole awareness scale now. You have to put this inside a mechanism of delivery where you can understand what a prospect's awareness level is and then give them the right messages for that level. And I'm going to talk more about that in a future episode, what that mechanism might look like. But it's important that when somebody comes to you and makes their first contact with you, you have to gauge what their awareness level is effectively in your marketing mechanism. And that's one thing that was missing a lot in this last era of SaaS marketing, because they just assumed everybody was in the 3%. And those who weren't were just casualties of the process. So in a future episode, we'll talk about how you do that, how you gauge that awareness level, and how you put that inside this mechanism so that you can give them the right messages for where they're at right now and move them up that awareness scale as you move them through your funnel, down your funnel. But for now, I hope this has given you some things to really think about. The awareness scale, of course, was not something that I made up. It's not something that only in the know people today know. It's an old marketing principle. But the problem was it hasn't been put into operation in B2B SaaS marketing for a very long time, and it needs to come back. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening to the Growth and Influence podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, share it with others, give it a 5-star rating, whatever you can do to help others find this content as well. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for being here.